If you and I were going to go grocery shopping, it's very helpful to have a really cool tool called a list, a grocery list. And that way, as we go in, we can, pick up the items we need and check them off one by one to make sure we don't forget anything. So in this video, I'd like to take a big picture look with you at the ingredients and components that are going to go into our lab environment. So just to be clear, the company is Fortinet, and they have lots of products, and the firewall product we're going to focus our lab environment on is the next generation firewall, which is indeed called FortiGate. So again, Fortinet is the company, and FortiGate is the next generation firewall product. So up here, let's make a list of home lab options. So in our list of options, we have options for physical, which implies that we're buying the physical gear and getting the licenses using physical gear for it. However, that is usually cost prohibitive and is going to take longer to stand up if we have to wait for the physical gear to get in. The other option is virtualization. And in the world of virtualization, we're going to use some type of a hypervisor. That's an environment that we can use to support and create virtual machines, including operating systems like Linux or Windows, and also network infrastructure devices, such as virtualized switches and routers, and in the case of Fortinet, FortiGate virtualized firewalls. And as far as the hypervisor is concerned, which is providing this emulated environment, we have some options there as well, including EVE-NG, which is going to be the focal point for this set of videos. But it's not the only option. Besides EVE-NG, we could set up a virtualized environment using a product from VMware. And within VMware, we have a few options. We can use ESXi, which is a type 1 hypervisor where the virtualization software, the hypervisor software called ESXi, runs directly on the hardware. Or if we don't want a dedicated machine to that process, we can use a VMware product such as VMware Workstation. Or on an Apple product, we could use VMware Fusion, which are both examples of type 2 hypervisors, which run as an application on your computer. And then within those applications, they provide the virtualization services to create additional VMs. Another option for virtualization would be to use GNS3. And then yet another virtualization option would be to use VirtualBox. And also on this list, we could also use Hyper-V from Microsoft. Now, one thing about these virtualized environments is that they're not all set up exactly the same. And so each one has its own little quirks and tweaks. And so in this set of videos, I'm going to focus on EVE-NG, and I'll have separate sets of videos regarding one or two other options here as well. Next, to make our emulated environment work, we're going to need some software. And regarding software, the two major components I want to focus on right now are the emulation environment. So if we're going to use EVE-NG, we're going to need some EVE-NG software. And for the lab environment demonstration that we're doing in this set of videos, we're going to be using the EVE-NG Pro Edition. So EVE-NG has a free version. They've also got a professional edition. And let's take a quick peek at where we would go to get that software. So at the time of this recording, that site for EVE-NG is www.eve-ng.net. And as I mentioned, they've got a couple flavors of EVE-NG. They've got a free version, and they have the professional edition. And for this set of videos, I am going to be using the Pro, or the professional version of EVE-NG for the emulation environment. And EVE-NG itself, the emulator, is run as a VM itself. So behind the scenes, I'm running this virtual machine for EVE-NG using ESXi from VMware as the hypervisor. In fact, let's take a quick peek at what that looks like. So this is the graphical user interface for VMware's ESXi. And one of the virtual machines I have set up is a virtual machine called EVE-NG Pro. So then within EVE-NG, we're going to create our virtualized environment for the lab. And as part of that, regarding software, we're also going to need the FortiGate software for the VM. And to get that, we're going to go directly to Fortinet at support.fortinet.com. And at that point, if you don't already have an account with Fortinet, you can go ahead and sign up for a free account and then download the appropriate FortiGate virtual machine that we can then plug into EVE-NG and use in our lab. So let's pause just for a moment. Let me show you exactly what that looks like. So this is the support site, support.fortinet.com. And if you have an account already, just click on Login to log in. Or if you haven't set up an account yet, it's free. Click on Register. So I already have an account, so I'll go ahead and log in. And now that we're logged in, if we go up here to Support using the drop-down, and then in the download section right here, there's an option for VM images right here. So we'll click on VM images. And then from the drop-down regarding select product, we'll go ahead and select the FortiGate, which is the next generation firewall from Fortinet. Next, we'll select the platform. Now, because we're doing this in EVE-NG, the platform we want is KVM. So we'll click on KVM. And with the product selected and the platform selected, we then have the version to select. And for this demonstration, I'm going to use the latest and greatest as of this recording, which is 7.02. And then over here on the right, we have a couple options. The top one here says, hey, this is for an upgrade from previous versions of FortiGate. And then down below, which is the one we want, is for a new deployment of FortiGate. So then we click here on download to download that zip file to our local computer. And here's the cool part of this. When we download this and implement this in our lab environment, we have 15 days as part of a built-in evaluation license where we can use the features and the product and test it out in our lab environment without having to formally register and get a long-term license from Fortinet, which makes it convenient to download, build a lab, practice with it, and be able to practice with many of the features of the product without having to formally register it. Another important aspect we'd want to plan out in advance would be the topology or a lab design that we intend to use. And that way, as we go to create the lab environment, we aren't guessing about, oh, what should we put here and what should we put there? We can have a plan in place and then just implement that plan. So let's do exactly that in the very next video together. We'll set up a design regarding what we want the network to look like, and then we'll proceed to implement that design as part of our lab. So I'll see you in that next video in just a moment. Meanwhile, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.